Good afternoon, I'm Simon Foster. This is the Ministry Shift Extra on Thursday, the 14th of May. And today we are looking at lay ministry. It's taken a bit of getting to this one, partly because so many lay ministers are actually have been furloughed, which is, I think, pretty tough on them and very much part of where we're at. But today I am delighted that we've been joined by three active lay ministers from the Diocese of Lichfield. They are John Wellesby, Fiona Needs and Lynn Other. And we're going to be looking at just what lay ministry is like at the moment. So I'm going to get to each of you. If you could just say hello and tell me in 15 seconds what your role is. John, can we start with you?
Hi, I'm a reader at St Jude's in Wolverhampton, and I'm also an industrial chaplain for Black Country Urban Industrial Mission, working with National Express Bus West Midlands.
Thank you, John. Fiona.
Hi, I'm a member of my ministry team in my rural village here, so I lead services and help plan and run events. At work, I'm a member of the Christian Fellowship, plus the multi-faith network that we've got going on. And I've recently done chaplaincy training with Lichfield Diocese, so I'm looking at moving into that role.
Brilliant. And you're right on the edge of the diocese near Uttoxeter?
Yes, that's right.
Lovely. And at the other edge of the diocese, or one of the other edges of the diocese, is Lynn Other.
Yes, hello, and I'm a reader with the benefits of Kimber and Enville. My usual role would be to lead services and do a bit of preaching, and I'm involved with the Rev's Fresh Expressions, and I'm also a school chaplain. Thank
you, Lynn. And one of the interesting things for me in kind of meeting each of you guys is that you all have multiple roles. You've all got really a role within parish and then a role outside and beyond parish. I'm wondering how the balance has changed for you in that ministry in the last few weeks since lockdown. Fiona, how's it been for you?
For me, I think I've been doing slightly more of my work-based ministry rather than in the village, where even though we're in a period of interregnum at the moment, we're blessed with having a lay reader who does a really good job of having church services on Facebook and so on. But from work, I'm certainly, even though most people I'm connected with are working from home, and then quite a few also are furloughed, I'm still managing to keep in touch with that network. The Christian Fellowship does promote online fellowship activities. And there are still some people who I'm kind of supporting sort of one-to-one. Some of that's kind of just basically sort of sharing time and friendship, encouragement, being beside them. Some, probably a minority to be honest, but some of those conversations are kind of, I'd say they are kind of Christian. I'd characterize them as distinctly a sort of Christian type relationship. And yeah, so that's quite interesting actually. So because I'm sort of at home, I can sort of actually, in a way, for the small number of people, can actually spend a bit more time, if anything. So yes, it has changed, certainly.
And is that a sense of where the pastoral need is most obvious for you?
Yes. So it's a few people who I was already quite closely in touch with, and then some others who I've sort of felt led to reach out to, if you like. What I haven't had is people, or what I haven't had so much of is people coming to find me, as I perhaps would work.
As the kind of out of sight is out of mind, really.
Yes, very much. Yes, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you, Fiona. John, how's the balance been for you?
I think realistically, I've spent a bit less time on both church and chaplaincy, perhaps especially chaplaincy. The core of my workplace chaplaincy is really being available and being present in the workplace, and that's the one thing that I'm not allowed to be. So as Fiona suggested, I've got some links with people who I've known for some time, but so much of the foundational work for the workplace chaplaincy is just being there. and those spontaneous conversations that come up about work, about life, about family, just aren't happening. And there's been similarities in the changes I've experienced in both, in a way. So I felt in parish as well. As a reader who preaches, preaching, I guess, is the thing that I think is my main thing as a reader. I feel I've really lost what was a driving force for me. Was always, I think, the dynamic between the word, between me as preacher and the congregation. That's very different now when I prepare a message looking into the blue light of my laptop, which is my camera. And that's very different. And likewise, as I say, I mean, I've had some email or Facebook exchanges with drivers from work, but it tends to lend itself, those sorts of exchanges tend to lend themselves more to a functional process or looking at a specific issue, rather than that being present and real interaction with people.
So a sense in which there's a lot less contact, and also kind of something about the quality of the contact that you're experiencing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've had some bits of useful contact with drivers in various ways, and I see drivers when I'm out and about occasionally in Wolverhampton as well. You have that exchange. It's very much more limited. I recently had to do a video with the Trade Union Council in Wolverhampton, Bilston as well, because normally I would be present at the Workers' Memorial event that's held every year around the world. It's an international event, and I normally speak at the Wolverhampton event. I did a video to contribute to the combined video that all the other speakers are doing. But again, that's a very different experience, standing in the centre of Wolverhampton, talking to assembled people about workers' lives.
You're trying to do the same kind of ministry, but in a different way. It's quite a challenge, isn't it? Yeah. Lynn, how's it been for you? What's the balance been like in Kimber?
Well, I think it's completely changed, if I'm honest. So I've gone from perhaps doing, a bit of preaching, leading of services, to doing a lot more on live stream. So live streaming morning prayer, evening prayer every Sunday, the odd family service, madness from the sitting room, a lot of pastoral phone calls. So I spend a lot of time on phone calls, which is fine to do that. So if anything, I feel closer to our community, although I'm not physically walking around and having the face-to-face conversations and the odd bits of information you pick up, just, oh, and by the way, did you know? The people that I'm phoning, and that rotates from both churches. We have a rotating rota. So actually I'm having deeper conversations with people. So for instance, you run out of, tell me all your news, because most of the time people are doing the same thing every day. We'd be lucky in our gardens. So you say, how are you feeling? What are you thinking about? And quite a few people, especially the older people, have been going back over their memories and reminiscing and sharing those sort of things with me. So we've had deeper conversations, and I've felt closer to the people in this very strange way. I've had a connection through the live streaming. Almost straight away I felt that connection, and the privilege of me being in my home, I suppose, and being in my slippers and going into other people's homes, and I don't know what they were wearing. Maybe their slippers too. But and it's formed a very lovely core congregation in the mornings. And that's been really nice. People are greeting each other warmly, as though they've known each other for a long time, and most of them haven't met. So it's this shift to online, I would say, for me.
And I'm really interested by the questions thing. It sounds like you've learned to ask new questions, or ask questions in a new way.
Yes, I think so. And I think that's where chaplaincy training has helped enormously. So we've talked about the being present, and as we can't be physically present, I feel that I've been much more present in my listening. Yes, the greatest gift I can give is not go, well, I've got half an hour per pastoral call. If it takes an hour and a half, if I'm on the phone for 2 hours, it doesn't matter. That's that's my being present with them, being attentive, and that listening. I mean, let's face it, if you haven't got a whole person in front of you, and at best you have this, and probably only a voice, you can't pick up the same signals, the body language, the facial expressions often. So you're tuning in extra carefully to what they're saying, and often what they're not saying. Yes, so it's been a great benefit and blessing to have had the chaplaincy experience and training, and just be able to shift that, if you like, into this new way after probably 2 weeks of standing looking like startled rabbits in headlights. You know, what are we going to do? For me, this has been a lovely time of learning, of growing, and of blessing for myself, I suppose. Yeah.
That's really, really interesting, actually, Lynn, because one of the things that I'm quite aware of, especially as an ordinand at the moment, is the level of training that you seem to get as somebody going into ordained ministry is far beyond that of what's offered to most lay ministers. So perhaps there's a question that I could put to each of you there about how you feel the training that you've had has really kind of equipped you for a time that nobody really predicted and that has changed our ministry. John, you're looking so thoughtful. I'll come to you first on that one.
I'm looking worried that you're going to come to me first.
How do you feel you've been equipped for this strange stage of ministry?
I don't feel massively equipped. I don't think that's a gap in my training, because, as you say, I don't think anybody could have expected. I wouldn't have. I was trained as a reader over 30 years ago, so I'm not sure that's going to make me ready for this anyway. So it's very difficult to anticipate, and I think a lot comes down probably to your circumstances. So it's good to hear how Fiona's got links with various people that she's been providing pastoral care for in her working context, whereas it's very much more limited for me. There's not a lot of people who I'm in personal contact with. Several people who have my telephone number, but I don't have very many bus drivers' telephone numbers. It's just a matter of who happens to be there when I come in. And also personalities as well. I'm awful on telephones. I can do through my career, I had to learn how to do business telephone calls, but personal calls, for lots of reasons, I'm awful at. And also this thing about when I speak, I hesitate to call it preaching now. I don't know what people's reaction is. I find it difficult. It's been very encouraging to have people ring up or post something as a reaction. That's been good. But I'm very dependent on that personal link with the whole person, as Lynn helpfully put it. So that's maybe a combination of my circumstances, particularly as an industrial chaplain, but also who I am and what I'm good at and not so good at.
Thanks, John. That's great. Fiona, what about you? How do you feel equipped for this time, either by the formal training or by your kind of formation as a Christian, really?
The training path I've most recently been following was the authorised lay ministry from Lichfield Diocese, and then also the, I think it was called chaplaincy for everyone. And I think I do still kind of refer to the materials and things, or reach out to the people I met on the courses or the leaders if I've got any sort of particular questions or things I'm trying to explore. In terms of just sort of being able to spend time with people, I mean, a lot of what I'm spending my time really is just supporting people in prayer, actually, and in their journey of, I suppose you'd call it developing their prayer practice, I guess, which is quite interesting in that it's not, as you mentioned when you sort of asked the question, Simon, it's sort of a bit about me and my personal experience, really, how I would answer that, not so much about, you know, what specifically has been covered in training. But in terms of feeling equipped, yeah, I certainly feel supported by the diocese as well as by my local, the rector and various other members of the ministry team. And yeah, it is quite interesting. Doing things remotely is obviously a bit more of a challenge, but actually in some ways it's a bit more immediate, in the sense that if I want to sort of get in touch with someone, well, I can either phone them or email them or text them or whatever, and they're quite often immediately there, actually, or at least, you know, if someone's trying to get in touch with me, they can, without sort of wandering around and finding I'm in a conference room in a different building and all the rest of it. So in some ways, if you do manage to get hold of people, and as Lynn was saying, you can see them, and, you know, even if it is just a voice on the phone, it can be more immediate. So it's, I don't know, there's a tension. In some ways it's more difficult, and in some ways it's better. It's interesting.
Yeah, you've got them there. Yeah. Lynn, you sound like you're flourishing in this. Do you think you have opportunities as a lay person that maybe you wouldn't have if you were ordained?
I'm very fortunate that I've been given so many opportunities to try new things and to adapt, you know, quickly to it, and to be part of that is, you know, I'm very, very fortunate. I think generally lay ministry readers, we operate in that zone between, don't we, really? Although, you know, if you like, equal to clergy, yet in a very different role. And I do find that in some ways there's more freedom there. We don't have to perhaps pay attention to, I don't know, details. Church details. Is that, can I just
Canons,
say
yeah.
church details? Yeah. Oh no. But you know, that we do have a lot of opportunity to build relationships, and I like where we have the chance to operate. It can take many different forms and shapes. And what I've found at the moment, I like this sort of idea of, you know, the inflatable boons that you sometimes put in harbours. They just sit on top of the water, and everything, water can come underneath, it can come over the top, and the shape of it moves, but it's there and it's doing the job, but it's shifting. Well, that's kind of how I feel, that I'm doing the job, I'm there, and it's shifting. So having the opportunity to shift with things is good. Yeah, I'm very grateful. I am thriving in this time, in the weirdest possible way.
It's the ministry shift, isn't it? And
It
that's what we're about. Well, Lynn and John and Fiona, our quarter of an hour is more than up. Thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you everybody who's watching today. We will be back on Monday. Matthew Parker will be hosting a ministry shift about what kind of messages we're giving to our congregations and what types of messages we're hearing back from them. If you've found this show interesting and helpful, please do share it with anybody else who might join and might enjoy it. And look forward to seeing you soon.